Hello and welcome to Creative Conversations. I'm Rosie and today is part 2 of a conversation I started with Greg Card. If you haven't seen the first one, go check it out. We talk a lot about the role of the artist in church and in spirituality. Today we're going to focus a bit more on Greg Card's own work. Greg, can you share a bit about any experiences or encounters people have had with your artwork?
I've had people have encounters with my work and be healed of things, emotional situations. And nobody's ever told me about healing of, in particular, like some real physical kind of thing, like a cut or, anything like that. But I've had people tell me about emotional healings that have taken place and deep spiritual things that have happened with them in relationship to their encounters with works that I've done. Now, I don't attribute anything about that in relationship to myself. I attribute it to, like, I'm willing to make the work. The Lord trusts me, I trust him, and he does what he wants with it. So if he wants to heal somebody, have at it. I mean, he'll do whatever, And if he feels that it's better that, we use a piece of visual artwork to help make all of this manifest and so on, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it sounds sacramental, in the same way the sacrament of baptism, or I guess I grew up in a culture that used that language where we talk about the sacrament of baptism, the sacrament of marriage, the sacrament of communion, and I can see the similarity. It's using physical things that God's created, or traditions that have been passed down for a spiritual reality.
So our natural genius to put things together. I mean, watch children. Children do it all the time, nonstop. They don't even have to think about it. They just do it. They just put it together, and it's this, it's that, and whatever. And it's perfectly joyful. It's fun. It's it's everything that it should be and can be. Well, not literally everything it can be, but it's everything that should be, for sure.
Yeah. And moving on from a child, playing and making art, to someone like you, Greg, who's more experienced, and just to chat about your art for a while. Some of it, when I look at it, it's like there's a key right through it, almost mathematical, like with spirals and Fibonacci. Is that purposeful?
I'm sorry, is it what?
Is it purposeful? Do you have some kind of...
Well, it's purposeful in the sense that I understand that it exists. I know it's in the world in sort of that artificial created sense. I understand it's in the world that way, that man has made use of it, but I also understand that it's in the world, it's part of the creation.
Yeah. That
system is of the major and minor proportions. It's called Fibonacci sequence. It's in mathematics. It's just simply an additive series of numbers: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, et cetera, infinite. It just goes on infinitely. And it's derived by 2 and 3 makes 5. 5 and 3 makes 8, et cetera, et cetera. So you're adding the last to the next, the last to the next. So if I draw a line that is 8 inches long, right beside a line that's 5 inches long, I get a total that's, 13 inches? Right. So that 8-inch can then be made into an 8-inch square. 5 can be made into a 5-inch by 5 by 8 rectangle, standing side by side, and they are then harmonically proportioned to one another in terms of major and minor. That proportion system has been used in architecture in the ancient world. The Great Pyramid in Giza is built on that principle.
Yeah, my great grandparents built them.
Yes, there you go. Absolutely.
Now, Greg, finally, because that's kind of our time, is there anything you wanted to say about arts and church culture in general?
Um, from my perception of having worked in the prophetic ministry and been involved with church leadership over years, and as well as just the general body of believers and so on, we're at a critical point. We are right up on, coming close to the first end, or the approaching of the first quarter of the 21st century. We've got robots moving around on Mars, taking photographs. We've got measuring atmosphere stuff, looking for signs of life in ancient water sources and all that stuff. And yet in the church, we're just sort of plodding along in regards to even the whole issue about the dynamics of visual art and all this kind of stuff. I find that troubling. And I think that it's very possible that if the church doesn't sort of get off its self-interested stuff and begin to interact with the arts, and I'm talking about the arts, I'm not talking about other issues, politics, or anything. I'm just talking about the arts. We're going to have a hard time getting to the end of this century. There has got to be a positive discourse that goes on between the artists who are working in faith in the church and the leadership structure of the church. There has to be a voice that is present in the leadership structure of the church for the future. It's necessary.
And necessary because back to what we were saying, how art is illuminating and brings truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also art is also problem solving on a very large and sometimes very intense scale. Many people don't understand that because they think, well, it's the guy over there in his studio or whatever, he got a lot of paint, he throws it around, makes a mess, and blah, 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 which in some cases is true, but in most cases it's not. Most artists that I've known are very hardworking people, and they work at it 24 hours a day, most of them. Some people would say, well, that's why they're so obsessed and weird. Well, maybe. But that also has to do with the fact that it's an isolated kind of profession. You do it one-to-one with what you're doing. Yeah. But anyway, I really think that that's necessary in regards to the church. There needs to be this discourse. There needs to be a dialogue. There needs to be a place at the table of leadership for the visual arts to be present, to have a voice. I think it's imperative.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great vision, Greg. Really important. And I, as we were chatting last time as well, to have artists on the leadership team as well, to be part of the,
Yeah.
Yeah. Greg,
just the very last thing I'd say about that, one of the things that we discovered, I went for years in church trying to have encounters with other people who were involved in the arts, didn't have any. Years and years and years, didn't have any. I lived in New York for 14 years. I didn't even have them there, which is the center of the art world. I just like, what? Anyway, it turned out that what the Lord made clear to us a number of years ago was the way we were going to survive. I'm talking about myself and my wife in the church as working visual artists. We were going to have a working relationship with the prophetic ministry, because the prophetic ministry was the only one that was open to actually having a dialogue with the visual arts. And that's a lot, doesn't it? So there.
Yeah. And I can understand that with the nature of the prophetic. Yeah,
and I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. Great, Greg, it was great to have you on Creative Conversations. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Rosie. It's great talking to you. Thank you for the opportunity.